Hey, my name is Matt Johnson, and today I'm going to share with you how to quickly and easily film in the vlog photo style with your Panasonic cameras like the GH7 that I have right here. Also, to save you time and make this photo style super easy to film with, I've created an entire guide for the Panasonic GH7 in particular that's going to show you how to completely master all of the settings of this camera and get the best possible image quality from it. Oh, and it comes with color presets that I've specifically made for filming in vlog with the GH7 as well. I will link to this guide down below. Getting started now. First, grab your camera, navigate to the photo style menu, and then you're going to want to go all the way over until your camera is set to vlog. As you can see, whenever you select this, all of the customization settings here for the camera on the right are going to be grayed out except for two at the bottom here that are kind of hidden: sharpness and noise reduction. Both of these are going to be set to 0 by default though. You may be tempted to change some of these settings, but I would never recommend it. You can always add noise reduction and sharpness in your editing software, and you're going to have way more control over how much you add by doing things that way. So leave them set to 0. You do not want to bake extra sharpness or noise reduction into your footage. Warnings out of the way. Once you press the set button to select vlog and go back to the preview screen on your camera, this is where you may start to feel really intimidated, because whenever you switch to filming in vlog, your image preview is going to be this really low contrast, really flat and desaturated image, and it can be really difficult to tell if your footage is bright enough or dark enough, not to mention trying to guess the correct white balance because the footage is just so desaturated and flat. Well, here's where I have really good news for you. You do not need to film with your camera showing this log preview. No, you can actually tell the camera that you want it to show you a preview of how it will look after you color grade and add that saturation and contrast back to it. To enable this saturated and contrasty preview, you're going to want to go back into the menu, over to the gear icon, then down to the second camera screen icon on the back, which is monitor/display video, and select log view assist. Then for let's select vlog, you're going to want to go in here and make sure that vlog_709 is selected. And then you're going to want to go down here to let view assist monitor and turn it on. And in your image preview, you're not going to see any difference. But if I go down here to let view assist and turn this on too, because I'm screen recording, oh, look, suddenly we have contrast and saturation, and there's a better looking preview of how the image is going to look in the camera after you color grade it. Speaking of exposure, if you want the best possible image quality out of your Panasonic camera with minimal noise, you need to make sure that you are exposing properly when filming in vlog. How do you expose properly? Well, this may seem a bit counterintuitive, but you actually want to overexpose your footage when filming. Then when you color grade, you'll bring the footage exposure back down when you add contrast and saturation, and this lowering of your exposure will hide any noise in your footage. And because avoiding noise is so important, I'm now going to show you some very important tools that you can use in your Panasonic camera to help you make sure that you can easily expose vlog perfectly every single time. Let's start with metering. Metering is how your camera determines how bright the image is that it is recording, and that is represented by the letters MM at the bottom of your camera screen and this number to the right of it. If this number is lower than 0, your image is underexposed. And if it is over 0, so say 1/3, 2/3, +1, etc., it is overexposed. And remember, because you're filming in log, you are going to want to overexpose your image, and the amount that you're going to want to overexpose it is between 1 and 2 stops over, which means you ideally want the number to the right of this MM box to read +1 or +2 or some fraction in between, like 1 1/3 or 1 2/3. Also, before we go any further, you need to make sure that your metering is set up properly in your camera. And to do that, go to the menu, go down to the video camera, then to image quality 1, and then for metering mode, make sure that it's set to the highest option that has the rounded rectangle and the black dot in the center with the half circles around it. And in addition, go to the gear icon to image quality and go down to face priority and multimetering and make sure that is turned on as well. That way it's going to help the camera tell you how well exposed the faces are in your scene if it detects a face, and that's always a good thing. Moving on now, we need to talk about zebras, and no, not the majestic African an animal. Zebras are a feature of most modern cameras, including basically all Panasonic cameras, like the GH7, and zebras are going to show you animated black angled lines over any footage that is overexposed on your camera. To access them, open your camera menu, go to the blue gear icon, then down to monitor/display video, and go all the way down to zebra pattern. And here you're going to have a few options, but you're going to want to select zebra 1. Then you're going to want to select it again, go back down to set, and you're going to want to set zebra 1 to 85% if you are on the Panasonic GH7, but if you're on a full frame Panasonic camera, you should be able to set this higher to 95%. The reason this maximum zebra level varies on different Panasonic cameras is that each of these cameras have different levels of dynamic range, and so you're going to want to choose the maximum level that your camera offers to make sure that you're recording the most amount of detail in your highlights. On the GH7 in particular, anything higher than 85% is considered overexposed without any more highlight information, so by you setting your zebras to 85%, that means that your image preview on the back of the screen is going to start showing you zebras in the highlights if they're too bright, and then you may want to lower your exposure so you're going to be able to recover them while editing. If you look here at the preview, look at the light up here. Ooh, we got all these wavy lines on it. Those are the zebra lines. You're probably going to see some zebras in the background around that light, and that's okay because you still want the person in front of that light to be bright enough and not be underexposed. But if you're seeing zebras on a person's face or skin, that means that your footage is definitely too bright and your exposure needs to be darker. The main thing that you need to remember is that your camera's metering isn't that smart. While we enabled the setting earlier to have the camera prioritize exposing for faces in a scene, that isn't perfect. And if your metering is telling you that the footage is between 1 and 2 stops overexposed like it should be, but in reality you're filming a person with a very bright light behind them, the odds are that the metering is just picking up that bright light instead of the person, and the person may still be underexposed, so you're gonna have to bring up the exposure in post and possibly introduce a lot of dreaded noise, especially on them, which would be a bummer. So to help you with this, I have great news, because the next tool that we're going to talk about right now is going to massively help you with your exposure and help you tell if the camera's metering is accurate, no matter what you are filming. This tool is called the Waveform monitor. Go into the camera's menu again, go to the blue gear icon, down to the monitor/display video, subheading 2, and here it says WFM/vector scope. Spoiler, WFM stands for Waveform monitor. So you're going to go up here, select this Waveform monitor, and a large green rectangle is going to appear on your screen with a lot of dotted lines and 3 solid lines. 1 solid line at the top, 1 solid line in the middle, and 1 at the bottom. Tap on your screen and you can move the Waveform monitor around using the touch screen on the back of your camera. I recommend putting this monitor in the bottom right because it nestles down there very nicely to the right of your audio meters. Press set then, and don't stress if you aren't happy with where the Waveform monitor is. You can always tap it on the back of your screen and move it around whatever you want to. Now, as a side note, you can set up this Waveform monitor to a custom button to make it super easy to toggle on and off. Showing you how to do that is a little outside of the scope of this video though, but just know that I do cover how to do that in my GH7 setup guide course, which is linked down in the video description. Now, the way this Waveform monitor works is that it's going to show you the brightness level of any object that your camera sees. Remember those 3 solid lines? The bottom solid line represents something that is completely black with no detail. The top solid line represents something that's too bright and overexposed. And the solid green line in the middle means something that is properly exposed right about where you want it to be, actually. Darker things are going to be lower and brighter things are going to be higher. And what's great is this is all going to be presented horizontally across the Waveform monitor. So any object on the left of your preview screen that you're looking at on the back of your monitor is going to appear on the left side of the Waveform monitor, and anything on the right side of your preview is going to appear on the right side of the monitor. And if you move your camera around, you're going to see that brighter things on your screen have higher mountain peaks and darker things have deeper valleys. This is almost like having robot vision because you're seeing objects in the Waveform monitor, but you're only seeing their brightness, not actually what the objects are. But if you have something move from left to right across the screen, you're actually going to see the brightness levels change as it moves. So as you're filming something in log and you want to make sure that's properly exposed, I would first recommend checking your camera's metering and seeing if it's telling you that it's between 1 or 2 stops over. And if it's not a particularly challenging scene where there's something bright behind your subject, maybe you're filming on a cloudy day or indoors where you have full control over your lighting and you aren't seeing any zebras zebras in your preview, at this point you should be good and you don't need to change anything else in regards to exposure. But if your scene is more challenging, let's say, and you want to double check that your footage is properly exposed, this is when I would turn on your waveform monitor, because it's going to show you the brightness levels of different objects that you're filming. So if you're filming someone in front of a bright light, for example, and the camera's telling you that it's overexposed, you can look at the waveform monitor and it will actually show you the brightness level where the light is in the background that is too bright, but it's also going to show you the brightness level of the person in front that's too dark. And then you're going to be able to tell the brightness levels are actually much lower and you need to raise them. And it's just a much more accurate way of being able to tell how exposed your subject is that you are filming. And speaking of your subject that you're filming, that leads us into talking more about skin tones, because you want the brightness level of a person's skin tones in your video to be closer to the solid middle green line running across your waveform monitor. It doesn't matter if the skin tones are one line below or one line above the middle green line. You don't have to be super precise. What matters though is that if you're filming a person and you check their brightness with the waveform monitor and the background behind them is super blown out and bright, but their skin tones are way down at the bottom of the waveform monitor, that's bad, because whenever you color grade your image, you're going to need to bring up the skin tone brightness levels and you're going to get noise on your subject. So when in doubt, use the waveform monitor in conjunction with your camera's metering and zebras to help you dial in your brightness for more difficult scenes very quickly. You should be able to get to the point where you can get all of your exposure set up in 10 seconds or less, regardless of what you're filming, which will help you keep filming very quickly. Speaking of filming quickly, by the way, we have one final tool to talk about, and this final tool is arguably one of the most critical when it comes to avoiding noise with your camera. So we ain't done yet. Spoiler, this final tool isn't really a tool, it's actually just your camera's ISO. But the ISO that you use when filming in vlog is actually really important, because if you've ever filmed in a dark room before, I'm sure you've experienced this, increasing the ISO of your camera to bring up the exposure can introduce more noise into your image, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid with all of the tools in this lesson. So first, to help you dial in your ISO properly in vlog, open up your camera menu, go back over to the gear icon, and then go up to image quality, and for ISO increments, make sure this is set to 1/3 EV. This setting is going to give you more fine-tuned control over how much you can raise or lower your ISO. With that done, there are two specific things that you need to keep in mind when it comes to ISO and your Panasonic camera. First, if you want the minimum amount of noise with the maximum amount of dynamic range, you're going to want to set your Panasonic camera to its native base ISO. This is going to vary depending on the specific Panasonic camera that you're using, but an easy way to tell is to simply open up your ISO menu and look for the lowest ISO level that does not have an L next to it. See here it says L400, L320, L250, etc. You do not want that. You want to stick to the lowest ISO level that does not have an L next to it. If you see an L next to an ISO value, that is an extended ISO, which means that the camera is going to do some work in the background to lower the shadows of the image while keeping the highlights bright, but your camera is also going to have a lower dynamic range whenever you use one of these extended ISOs, so I would avoid any of these ISOs and just stick to the ones that do not have any L's next to them. This lowest ISO is going to be your camera's base ISO. So on the GH7, that is going to be ISO 500, but on a camera like the Panasonic S5 II or S5 IIX, for example, the base ISO is going to be 640. You may not know your camera's base ISO until you open up your ISO menu and see the lowest ISO that your camera can go to. In addition, to complicate things further, some Panasonic cameras have what is known as a dual native ISO, meaning that there are two ISO levels where they look their best with the most dynamic range and minimum amount of noise. Unfortunately, this would be a weird video if I just gave you a big long list of all of the ISO levels of all the Panasonic cameras, so my best recommendation to you is just to go to Google and type the name of the camera followed by the words base ISO, and there you're going to be able to find the two ISO levels that work best for your camera. Back to the GH7 now, which is the Panasonic camera that I have with me. This camera does not have a dual base ISO, it just has one base ISO, and like I said earlier, that base ISO is ISO 500. So I would try to stay at ISO 500 whenever you're filming, and if you need your footage to be brighter, try using a lens with a wider aperture or bring in more lighting before you raise your ISO so you can keep your video quality as high as possible. Now, whenever it comes time for you to color grade your vlog footage, if you want to save time and get vibrant and true to life colors that look great, I want you to know I have a set of color presets called Who Is Matt LUTs that I've tested extensively with Panasonic vlog footage, and they work great. I will link to them down in the video description for you to check out. And also, down in the video description, you're going to find a link to my Panasonic GH7 setup guide. So if you have a GH7 and you want to become an absolute pro at using it, including optimizing all the settings, learning all of the hidden features, and being able to record the highest quality video from your GH7, you have to check out this guide. There are over 40 lessons showing you how to use the GH7, plus it comes with setting presets. They're going to help you dial in the best camera settings in just a few seconds. Oh yeah, and there's also a set of LUTs that I've created specifically for the GH7 camera sensor. So if you want to get great colors with your GH7 in particular, I'm going to help you do that in just a few clicks too. You can check out my GH7 camera setup guide, the link down in the video description. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.